Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Great Black Speakers Podcast, where we connect through conversation. I'm your host, Lawrence Watkins. I'm the founder and CEO of Great Black Speakers, and I'm also the president and chief operating officer of the Black Business School. Today, we're connecting you with Craston Artis, and Craston is an entrepreneur and educator. He has some pretty cool things that he's up to. He's in the Raleigh-Durham area, but we're going to learn more about him and what he has to offer, and just talk to him a little bit more about his solutions in regards to educating Black children. So, Craston, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good. Well, Craston, it's good to have you on here. Actually, we met over a LinkedIn post, right? So one of my friends and a close friend and family member of yours, Orion Brown, was posting an interview that we did with each other, talking about her company, the Black Travel Box, and you seem to like and enjoy it. And I went to your profile from her page, and I was like, oh, this brother is on top of it, right? So he's doing his thing out of North Carolina, and he would be an excellent guest to bring on to the Great Black Speakers Podcast. So can you tell the audience a little bit more about what you do and how you got to your current point?
Sure. So currently I am the program director for the fellowship at the Black Teacher Collaborative. And it's essentially, in a nutshell, we are training Black teachers to bring out the genius of Black children, which is a pretty dope mission. And it's actually what I originally went into education to do. So it's great synergy for me in starting that. And I'm also kind of putting a capstone on some years of entrepreneurship and education myself. And I've launched a virtual coaching service for schools centered around culturally relevant instruction. And the work I do with Black Teacher Collaborative it's just focused on Black teachers. We go into schools with mostly Black teachers and mostly Black students. But the work I'm doing with my own company is targeted at all schools. So we're training Black teachers, white teachers, everyone. But it's not obviously as relevant as what Black Teacher Collaborative is doing, because we're really about, like I said, bringing out the genius of Black children and helping them understand how their work how their genius fits within the work of the Black community, and then how to take a collectivist mindset to that work. So really groundbreaking in the realm of education reform.
Got you. So yeah, we're going to dig way into that because I think it's an awesome mission in terms of what it is that you are attempting to accomplish. But before we do, what led you to this point in your career? Like, did you always know you wanted to be in education? Were you on the path to do something else? Then there was a switch in trajectory. Like, what led you to this particular point in your path?
Yeah, so I've been in education for about 20 years. But as far as my my pro-Blackness, as my sister said,
we're gonna stop right there, right? So 20 years. So I like to show that Black don't crack any opportunity or chance that I can. So you doing something for anything for 20 years, I don't really believe, but we're gonna go with it. We're gonna go with it right there. So that's a reminder. Craston is a reminder that Black don't crack. We're gonna keep going into the story though. So you've been in education for 20 years.
Been in education for 20 years, no doubt. And you can do the CIA dig on me, pull up my information, but yes, definitely 20 years. Actually, this coming year will be 20 years. So we're doing that. And even prior to that, growing up, I saw Malcolm X, read the autobiography, listened to some Ice Cube from back in the day, and some Public Enemy, and I was kind of set on my path as far as what I wanted to do for Black people. And so over the years, I started out teaching in Chicago public schools, and your stereotypical, what do you call it, from the movie, or East Side High type situation, and matriculated through the district and started to kind of blend some of my experience with some of my entrepreneurial ideas, and said, well, there are certain things that I know teachers need and schools need, and they aren't going to be provided by the district. And I have the ideas and the wherewithal and the connections to try to make some of that happen. And so I just started iterating different ideas and started consulting for myself about 5 or 6 years ago, which ended up landing me here in North Carolina. I moved the family down here to be closer to some of my extended family. and just finished the MBA program last year at UNC. And that really helped me like formulate how I wanted to move forward. I definitely have to say, as far as schools are concerned, before too many Tar Heel fans go crazy, I am definitely an Aggie at heart. I graduated from North Carolina A&T. And that's really where I was able to be comfortable in my skin, not only academically, but intellectually and socially, about being a Black person who's about the mission for his people. And so, yeah, that's what's kind of brought me to where I am. And I also feel like that energy is what's brought an opportunity like working for Black Teacher Collaborative, because it literally is, it's what I went into education for. I said, if I'm a Black man, then I am uniquely suited to serve Black children in certain ways. And now, again, like I said, I'm with an organization that is really trying to accentuate that and scale that across the country.
Love it. And we're about to jump, really deep into the Black Teacher Collaborative here. But before we do, commercial break, and a quick reminder, I'm here with Craston Artis. So Craston is the program director over at the Black Teacher Collaborative. He's an entrepreneur, also an educator, and he's going to get, talking to more about his consulting services and what it is that he does too. If you, like this interview, please go ahead and press the like button, the thumbs up button on YouTube, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And lastly, please go over, if you're all about economic empowerment education, please head over to theblackbusinessschool.com. That's theblackbusinessschool.com, where we don't just teach you how to climb a corporate ladder, we also teach you how to build one as well. So please head over there and take some of our free courses to get acclimated in terms of what it is that we do in our mission, in vision, in our values to push the Black community forward. So back to the Black Teacher Collaborative and what you're up to. With this mission though, a question that I have is, it's very basic, right? And I think I understand why, but I want to ask you, like, why is it important to do this training and to create these connections with Black teachers for the Black community?
Well, I think first and foremost, we as Black people have so much healing to do ourselves. And so a lot of times people say that there's plenty of data, particularly out from the state of North Carolina, about how a Black child in front of a Black teacher, what it does for academic outcomes, even post-secondary. But a lot of people push back and say, well, it's not magic just to put a child in front of a Black child in front of a Black teacher. And I would agree to an extent, because again, we as Black folks, we have our own issues to get through. You can put a Black child in front of a Black teacher and they will run them down as much as anyone else will, just because of the things we're dealing with, inferiority complex, other, and the layers of that. So the training is important because, one, we're helping Black teachers to establish that sense of themselves, the understanding of the socio-political consciousness that comes with being Black, what shared racial identity means in the classroom and how powerful it is. And so as we uncover that and build that sense within teachers, they're then able to look at their curriculum, their instructional pedagogy, and look at how it can become liberatory for those Black children and start to move them in a ways that truly mirrors what existed to a certain extent, minus a lot of the resources, in Black-run schools prior to desegregation efforts. So that's kind of where the impetus comes from.
You know what? Let's take a step back. We're dealing with an educated brother, Dayboy, talking about some pedagogy.
I got to throw out the terms, you know what I'm saying?
Let's simplify that for our audience,
okay.
right? So what does that mean in regards to taking their pedagogy and using it to what word did you use? I'm sorry.
Liberatory pedagogy.
Liberatory pedagogy. So what is that? And why is that important?
So it's different to teach, and usually this is what falls in the realm of culturally relevant instruction. So to teach, to use books that reflect Black children, to discuss themes that reflect the issues and concerns of Black children, to integrate it in that curriculum is great. And that's far beyond what a lot of schools do. Unfortunately, a lot of schools and districts and states trying to bring that into whatever, whatever they want to call it, whether it's equity or however they want to address it. But it's another level to specifically speak to a Black child about their history, about who they are today, and their genius today, and what that genius looks like in the future. I was watching an episode of a show, I can't remember the name of it recently, but the sister was talking about how we always, especially during Black History Month, talk about, again, history, what we've done. And oftentimes we don't even address what happens today, like they talk about on a Blackish episode. But what about the future? Like the Afro-futurist movement is dope to me, because we have to have our children envisioning what we produce in the future. It's great to talk about what we've done in the past, but what are we going to do in the future? And so to really talk about that whole continuum is revolutionary in and of itself. But when you talk about freeing a Black child from the constructs of what they've been given, having them imagine that they are in this work together as a community, and then to think about how they're going to complete that work collectively, not just on their own, that to me is revolutionary and liberatory. And it's not just creating a safe space for Black children, and it's not just adding some content here and there, but it's truly delivering a pedagogy or a way of instruction that moves us forward as a people.
Well, let's talk about moving forward then, right? Because I think that's, great when you talk about the Afrofuturist movement and, what's going on that particular front. What is your vision for the future of Black children?
Wow, that's a big question. So you got to give me those beforehand, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm prepared. No, my vision is to be able to, I would put it like this. And I think, all Black people kind of need to take this perspective, but we have to get back to our African-centered values. And by that, I mean mainly talking about communalism. What I see that we've done, taking on American or European values, or however you want to put it, is that this idea of rugged individualism, it particularly hurts us most. One, because we're a planned minority, so we're outnumbered. And two, because the society was just built on top of us and our labor and extracting that wealth for hundreds of years. And so we have to work together. There's no way we can think of things individually. But what we are doing is we're taking that individualism on and we're engaging with each other in that way. And that's damaging in and of itself. But then there are times where we switch and we take a more communal sense or a sharing sense with other groups. And then they take advantage of that. So it's like the dual consciousness that Du Bois talked about. Within our group, within our community, we have to have that African-centered communal sense, sharing, forgiving when a brother or sister messes up, you know what I mean, and bring them back into the fold. And then when we deal with other groups, we have to have that more capitalist, individualist thinking, where we are out to gain what it is we need, and that is the first priority. So kind of seeing young Black people being able to switch between those two perspectives, no matter what they're dealing with in this society, like that to me would be the leader for the future that I want in my community.
Yeah, so basically taking principles that other communities have mastered and applying them to our community with our flavor seems to be, I guess the challenge, right? Because, when you talk about like community building and like that communalism and that culture amongst, let's say, the Jewish community or like different Asian communities like the Chinese or Japanese or, Korean or whatever it is, many of them have that, right? They have that tight bond. They work together. They make sure that they, take over and capitalize on industries that are out there. And then they exclude other groups and other industry or other groups and other, I guess, people from having a strong foothold in particular segments and particular markets. One example that we always give is, try to take a Black person and go open a store in Chinatown and see how much business that you actually get, right?
Right.
And that didn't come from rugged individualism. That comes from a strong sense of community in terms of a shared identity. And I love that vision in terms of what you have on that particular front. because I do personally think, that is what our community needs as well. And, a great vision in terms of what we can instill culturally, value-wise for our children, our children's children as well.
Yeah. And there are plenty of examples of us working as a collective, whether you're talking about Hey Ty in Durham or Black Wall Street in Tulsa. But like you said, when the Irish mob or Chinatown, when they pull their money together and people come from their home country, they give them money to start a business. They give them help them find housing. But then when they are negotiating with someone else, they're getting the best price they can. They're getting whatever advantage they can. And so that's, like I said, what we have to start to be able to do. That code switching, that level of code switching.
That level of code switching, not just your language, but, your actions as well, depending on what groups, you are working and dealing with. And we're going to dig into that a little bit more here in a second. I want to dig into that and talk a little bit about like the skills necessary that we need to impart into our children to make that happen. But before we do, I just remind everyone I'm here with Craston Artis. Craston is the program director of the Black Teacher Collaborative out of Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. He is talking to us about his work in terms of training Black educators to help them instill cultural values, to help them instill this sense of community within Black children through his program. So we're talking about that. If you like this video, you like what we're talking about, please go ahead and press the thumbs up button. Please go ahead and share this video with your friends and family, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. If you want to know more about Black economic empowerment and Black education, please head over to theblackbusinessschool.com. That is theblackbusinessschool.com, where we don't just help you climb the corporate ladder, we help you build one as well. So back to our conversation though with Craston. So Craston, you laid out a very compelling future or vision for the future for our children, with what you just mentioned. But there's a difference in terms of having the vision and like, how do you get there? How do we get there? And a big piece of that to me is like, what are some of the just core values and skills that our children need to learn to implement like this the shared culture that you're talking about in this code switching?
Yeah, so I think it goes to us as adults modeling that for them, obviously, and that starts with us building our own institutions. And so when they can see older Black people, Black elders moving within our own institutions, again, managing some of those issues, so we talk a lot about, or people usually throw out the idea of Black people acting like crabs in a barrel, even though, communalism is a significantly strong part of our culture historically. That when we encounter those issues, our young people have to see us working through those issues, not dismissing them, not, saying I was wrong by this Black business once and I'm never going there again, because we don't say that about white businesses. And see us kind of work through those things. Those are some of the things I saw my father. My father would, and definitely this would make my mother mad, but he would take 30 minutes to an hour traveling across town to find a Black business to give him whatever product he needed when he could have easily got one from somewhere else. So they've definitely got to see us doing that, and seeing us go through the work of building our own institutions. And it doesn't have to be grandiose. It can be small. They could be, we don't have to have our own school system right now. It could be after school program, but it's got to be something that is empowering. It's not just teaching the regular curriculum. It's teaching, like I said, those things that I was just talking about, the history, teaching what it means to take on and implement our cultural values, and then what it means to do that collectively. So it's a lot of working pieces. I'm in the education field because I feel like you're alluding to, it's if we don't start to give these values to our young people and show them what it means tangibly, they're not going to get it, which means we've got to control our own institutions, because the broader society is not going to include those things in their curriculum. And so I start there, but I'm a student of Dr. Claude Anderson. I completely feel like economics is the first step, which is something that drew me to your work. And because for us to run our own educational institutions, money to do that. So that's definitely that step. But I definitely feel like if you're not controlling your educational institutions and teaching what I'm talking about as far as like liberatory pedagogy, then we're going to be putting out very talented people that go to college and have all of these individual accolades, but without the collectivism.
Yeah, no, and I love that. And shout out to Dr. Anderson. Thanks for all the interviews that you've been doing with my brother Boyce Watkins, Dr. Watkins. They've been excellent. We're getting, very, very positive reviews from the community at large. So thanks for taking the time and imparting that wisdom upon our community, Dr. Claude Anderson. And, we agree with you, and we as in Boyce and myself, but, I agree with you specifically. And, a big tenet in terms of the Black Business School and what we do is what we call the Black Core of Three. So we believe we must educate our own children, we must create strong Black businesses, and we must support the businesses that we create, right? You talk about your father supporting, Black business, you talk about the education piece and all of those different types of things. But I want to hone in on the education piece a little bit more, right? So, there's this movement going on right now in regards to Black homeschooling. Right. So we don't control our own educational institutions. Many Black parents are opting out and deciding to teach their children themselves instead of relying upon a system that wasn't really catered towards us.
Right.
To teach them and impart those values onto their children. So can you talk a little bit more in regards to, I guess, your stance or like your philosophy regarding Black homeschooling? And is it beneficial, or is there a better way from your perspective?
Yeah, so I've definitely seen it from all perspectives. So I feel like if you look at it in kind of four buckets, you've got homeschooling, you've got private schools that are kind of, homeschooling, can also include some collectives, but you've got some established private schools, you've got charter schools, and you've got the traditional public schools. So traditional public schools, large systems that we don't run. So we're essentially in there fighting whether it's to implement an equity plan or whatever it is to get what we need. You're gonna win some, but I think you'll lose more to win. But that's where most of our babies are. And so that's why people like Huette, who started Black Teacher Collaborative, are doing that work. That's where our babies are. But when you talk about charter schools, I know that's politically unpopular for some people, but I would challenge Black people to think of them and even some of these turnaround networks that some states are starting now, like in North Carolina, think of them as ways for Black communities to take control of their schools. And I'll leave the rest of that blank because I think that requires some planning, and we don't always need to share what we're planning. So, but just to plant that, think of it more as that in that realm. And then, with private schools, they take a certain amount of resources to galvanize, and I completely understand that because my wife and I helped start one. But as far as homeschooling is concerning, my wife and I started with that. We put our sons in a Black homeschool collaborative or academy in Chicago. You might have heard of it, Freedom Home Academy. We started our sons there. We created our own. Then we just put together a board of parents and started to run our own. And then even after we moved here, we had our sons in a similar one. And so I think the challenge with homeschooling is, one, it's the aggregation of resources. It's similar to a charter school. You don't have the books available, the coaching available, even the administration to coordinate what you're doing as well. And so if you don't have an education background, then that's the hump you've got to get over. And you really need to connect with other parents who have an educational background or can even just provide you with certain resources. There's a lot more out there now than there was 15 years ago as far as resources you can get online. But if you have the time and the family resources to do it, I completely suggest it for anyone. And then that next step would be to start to connect with others. And even if you just start with, all right, we're going to meet on Thursdays because this parent knows a lot about, scientific subjects, and they'll teach, that to all our children, all the way to there's 10 parents. We're going to put our money in, we're going to rent a commercial space, and we're going to run our own. I'd say that's definitely where you need to go. It's not for everyone, but I think a lot of people say that partially because they have a lot of faith in the traditional public school system. And again, that's where most of our babies are. And I'm not throwing that away, but we need to question that. And we need to start to believe in the ability of ourselves and the people around us to be able to build institutions that our children need.
No, I love that. And I want to just talk about that a little bit more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a big limiting belief that I have, I went to public school. I went to the best private schools in the country too, right?
Okay.
For in high school and also college or MBA, those types of things. And
Mm-hmm.
you did as well, right? And there's this looming idea around, I guess, competency in regards to an ability of a parent to teach their children versus the ability of an instructor who specializes in teaching to actually impart those skills and knowledge, to children as well, right?
Yeah.
And I guess a limiting belief that I might have sometimes is like if I were to go in here and I have a 7-month-old daughter, if I were to go in here and try to, when she turns 3, trying to teach her basic mathematics or something, I probably would get frustrated because I've never found myself to be an excellent teacher, for example, right? But is it work? Can anyone do it? That's the question. I want to know. As a parent, can any parent do it, or what are the prerequisites for a parent to be able to, I guess, be trusted with imparting not just the cultural values, which is probably the more important piece, but the actual hardcore skills onto their children in in a homeschool network.
Yeah. So no, anyone can't do it. I would definitely say that, not just someone who got a 4-year degree in education, but and unfortunately, there's a lot of talk publicly around, how the teachers just aren't cutting it. When of course there are lots of things that teachers need and don't have. But I definitely don't want to make it as though anyone, there's a box of courses, and out of that box you just grab what you need and you run with it. Which is why I would push parents to, one, like I said, conceive of it as possible, which goes back to again the amount of trust you put in the system at large. But then look around you and galvanize the resources you have. If you want to homeschool, if you have the time and space for it within your family financial structure and your home life, but you don't necessarily have the expertise, then reach out to some other parents. Maybe you find another parent that is capable and can and does have those skills, and then you say, okay, you and your 2 children and these 2 children over here, you all meet at my house. I've got the space. You've got the expertise. Let's make it happen that way. And so I definitely wouldn't say believe anyone can do it, and don't feel like you have to do it on your own. Definitely assess your own abilities, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then decide, okay, this is what my child needs. Let me go out and find that. I taught high school for years, and when we started our school in Chicago, I was the curriculum director, right? But I didn't know how to teach font. I didn't know how to break down words for a 3-year-old, which is why we got an excellent teacher. Shout out to Mama Nzinga. She, as my wife says, she can teach a rock how to read. So, she got my son, my sons to read at 3 years old. She had the expertise. And granted, at the time, she didn't have a degree in education. She just had the ability. And as a instructional coach, I know I've seen that in teachers in the regular school system, people who don't need to be there, and then people who are just, quote, born to do it. So again, look in your community, find those resources. There's a lot of technology that you can use now. You can Skype or Zoom someone in from another city if you need to do that. And I think as time goes on, people are going to start to build more of those resources. But yeah, that's what I would say. Don't necessarily feel like you've got to take it on by yourself. But also don't sleep on your limitations. Reach out and fill those gaps where they are.
Got you. And you just said something that I want to dig into here in a second as it relates to technology and how that's changing the landscape. But before we do, I'm Lawrence Watkins. I'm here with Craston Artis. Craston is an educator and entrepreneur out of Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. He's the program director of the Black Teacher Collaborative. They provide professional development and instructional coaching for Black teachers to bring out the genius of Black children. And today we're talking all things education, the education of our Black boys and girls, to help them be better adults and to be more communal in their approach to the Black community, and building strong communities so that we can thrive in a history of legacy or a future of legacy instead of the opposite. Right. So if you like this video, please go ahead and press the thumbs up button, share with your friends and family, and also subscribe to our channel. And please head over to theblackbusinessschool.com if you want more, or if you want courses on financial literacy, where we don't just teach you how to climb the corporate ladder, we teach you how to build one as well. So Craston, I want to jump into this concept of, or I want to jump into, I guess, technology and the role of technology and the importance of technology to be able to do the vision that you want to lay out, right? Because you mentioned, getting on the Zoom call, kind of like we're doing right now, or getting on Skype and those types of things. How is technology going to shift or change, I guess, the narrative or the mode of teaching our Black youth for the future? Like, how can we use technology to make that a better process?
Yeah, so one of the things that jumps out at me, and it's a project that I'd like to kind of take on for myself and build, is open source resources or open source curriculum. So if you're not familiar, there's a whole body of curriculum, all subjects, that is open source, meaning anyone can use it. In fact, you can download it, edit it, manipulate it, share it with whomever. And so if you know how to kind of navigate that world and tap into it, and there are some platforms you can use for free to do that. But if you know how to do that, then that takes off the table the issue that a lot of people had before, which is, okay, I need to teach my son third grade math. What are they supposed to be learning based off this in school? Like, you have all those things laid out. One of the curriculum programs that they're using here at my son's school is called EL Education, and it's open source, but they go in and help districts to implement it. So when my son has homework, I can go to their website, I can download all of the resources, and I can help him complete it right there. And so if I were homeschooling, I could do the exact same thing. Again, this is with my expertise, but take that curriculum and follow it and be able to implement it with as much fidelity as possible, again, given my level of expertise. But that's one way, open source resources, that's going to significantly help people, whether it's homeschooling or even just starting small educational institutions, after school, tutoring, whatever it is. And then the other piece I feel like is some of the AI type platforms. And so I'm actually consulting or working with a startup now that's building an LMS that's going to source resources. So essentially a teacher will have a growth trajectory for a student, and the platform will be able to feed them what that student needs when they need it. And so when platforms like this become ubiquitous in schools, which they would, and those platforms start to offer that to individual parents, which they're going to start to, then parents will have an even higher level of access to content, as well as some of the decision making that goes in a school, whether it's around curriculum and standards. Because honestly, I feel like that's where a lot of parents get lost. First of all, they look at Common Core math and like, I don't know what that is. You're teaching my child 10 ways to subtract. I learned one way.
Teaching my child voodoo.
Right, exactly. I don't know what that is, and I don't know how you testing them on it, but yeah, so those kind of platforms kind of demystify that for parents. And so those are definitely two ways that I think technology is going to move things forward. And I'm even playing around with an idea for virtual tutoring for my sons. Like, I found a sister that I think is excellent. She's got a degree in English, and we're looking at using the ACT Aspire, which is the ACT test, but it's backwards mapped to third grade. And so you can essentially purchase the test, you can give it to your child, It'll come back with the data analysis. They'll have some activities for the child to do. And so you could have a tutor or a homeschool instructor give the child that test. The test will show you what standards they need to work on. And then in the meantime, in between interim tests, you can teach them some of those discrete skills that they need. So, and it's not a very expensive course at all. So that's another way that I think technology is allowing us to, as individuals, leverage information and content that before only schools had access to.
Got you. Actually, that leads me to some questions regarding higher education, right? So my first question has to do with your background. You went to an HBCU. You graduated from North Carolina A&T. You're an Aggie, right?
Right.
How has going to an HBCU affected, I guess, your approach or just your vision for the work that you're currently doing?
Yeah, so I feel like going to A&T, I already had a pretty strong sense of my identity as a Black person, with the caveat of all the other issues that Black people in this country have to deal with anyway. But I feel like going to a smaller environment, a more family feel, and I always tell people, there's no other time in your life. I don't care if you get out and work for an all-Black company or organization like BTC or all Black law firm. I don't know what it is. I don't care what it is. There's nowhere in your life where you'll be able to step onto a campus and look at however many thousands of young Black motivated people. Now, definitely some of them are there to just smoke weed, but that's a small percentage. But you'll never get that opportunity. And I tell my children this ever again in life. And so to be able to have that opportunity and be able to shape and mold my ideas within that space and gain, like I said, the confidence, it's unparalleled. And so that experience allowed me then to go to a University of Michigan and get a master's where, I have to sit in a room and, we're looking at educational statistics and Black quote underachievement comes up and everybody looks at me to answer why, because I'm the only Black person in the room, or the confidence to go to a Keenan Flagler Business School and sit in the room with accomplished members of my cohort in business, but still have the confidence to know that there's something that I have to bring to the table. And not that you can't get a level of confidence from other institutions, but I feel like, again, the HBCU is highly suited for that. And I tell my children all the time, like, you go to HBCU undergrad, and then after that, you can go to predominantly white institutions. But after you have that kind of foundation, and Killer Mike kind of speaks to that, either in one of his shows or maybe in one of the interviews I've seen where he talks about having for young Black children that space where they feel safe to be themselves and unapologetic, and then letting them go out in the world and experience it from that base. Because I know a lot of people say, well, even about Black colleges, well, you want your Black children to know how to deal with the rest of the world. They need to be around other people. They're going to be around other people regardless. I mean, that's just going to happen. But the question is, are you going to equip them with what they need to deal with those other people confidently and from a space of strength and motivation to be who they are? So that's what it boils down to for me.
Got you. Yeah, and I love that answer, and I agree with that. I wish I had went to an HBCU for undergrad, right? So I went to really PWIs my entire life, from high school to college to business school, and so on and so forth. But I think the bigger question now isn't. I think for most people, the bigger question now isn't whether I should send my child to an HBCU. Is it worth it to send my child to college at all?
Period. Right.
Period. Right. Because you have like this Ivy League scandal that's going on right now with the rich parents, lower rich, the upper rich, they just donate the building and their kids live.
Right.
The lower rich, they got they got some of these schemes and
right.
to get their children into these prestigious universities. But is it worth it? Like, is it worth it for Black folk, like Black children, to go to these colleges and universities? Because they're always coming out with this massive debt, right? I have a lot of debt from business school. You know what I mean? I hate it. I hate having all that debt.
No doubt.
But, sometimes it makes me wonder, like, was it worth it getting this, really prestigious degree just so I can have that as a part of my brand, right?
Right, right.
So, and also, I think in addition to that, we're talking about the educational system, creating our own institutions and, those types of things in the elementary and, middle school and high school level, so secondary education level. But we're not really talking about that type of reform on the college level and just reforming college in general. So, what are your thoughts on that in terms of, is college worth it? And then in addition to that, what are some improvements that you recommend that we could maybe make to make sure that our children are more prepared as they go out to the workforce and start their own businesses or whatever they want to do?
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely promote HBCUs for all the reasons I just stated, but they've got some work to do themselves. They've got to mirror popular society less and be more focused on, some of those concepts I talked about with liberatory education, because once you have Black people on those campuses, then you need to be talking more about how they're working together as a collective once they leave, what institutions are they building, how are they supporting that institution. That's a tough one for me, because working in a traditional public school system where and I don't know where this came from, this mantra of everybody goes to college. You go to most charter schools, that's their marketing thing. College going environment. They put banners up everywhere. And one thing I realized is that those things are nice, but like my parents created a college going environment for me growing up. Like they took me to homecoming at A&T and Winston-Salem State. And so that's why college was always on my mind and not even really a question. So it's going to be tough for a school to mimic that when that doesn't go on in the home or the student's community in the first place. But the other thing is, and this is something I studied in grad school, like everyone's not meant to go to college, like even logistically, like there aren't enough spots. Our society isn't even built for that. There's only a certain percentage that are going to have that opportunity. And so I think as the opportunity expands, unfortunately, and you see this historically, the value of the degree is going to go down. Like, so at some point, there were jobs that you had to have a high school diploma to have. And so now that's shifted. So even if we tried to send all our babies to college, it wouldn't have the desired effect we want. And so what we need to think about is some different avenues, some different ways of conceiving success. Because I even kind of question the fact that when parents talk about their children being successful, they immediately go to what college they went to or where they finished. And that's great. And that's a great achievement. But if my children finished college and have their own business, that to me is better than getting a job. Or if they didn't go to college, but some assets over those 4 years that they can then build into something else. Again, I'm not saying you completely put college on the shelf, but we need to rethink what success is. And success to me is, again, like I said, building assets and building institutions. And if you get there by going to college, that's great. And if you get there by not going to college, and like you said, not all that debt, then that's preferable, because you're getting the end goal, but you're not giving your devotion to some institutions that may or may not have your best heart and mind. I mean, at the end of the day, unfortunately, colleges have to act like businesses, and they have to get a certain number of customers in every year and provide a certain level of service and not necessarily more than what's demanded. And they're constantly raising tuition. Wages are stagnant. Like something's got to give. And so I would say we need to push our children to discover their genius, discover how that fits within and benefits their community, and then figure out their best path. And if that's college, then take them there, get them ready for the tests, give them the AP courses, whatever they need. But if it's not, then say you also have the opportunity to shine and bring something valuable to your community, and we're going to give you what you need to do that.
Love it. Love it. I love that answer. And I truly agree with you on that particular front in terms of you have to look at the child and what success will look like for that particular child, right? And there's not one particular path to deem someone successful or not. I think as a community, we bought into that. I remember Boyce in his early days, he wrote a book, Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About College, a guide for minority students. That was his first book. And
Mm-hmm.
since then, our thoughts around college education and just educational system in general have changed. Like his mantra back then was, if George Bush could go to Harvard, then every black kid in America could go to college, right?
Right.
And while that is still true, the question is, do they all need to go to college, or is that even the best path for them? So,
Yeah.
but I love your answer on that particular subject.
Yeah, and you've been to B school, like, if you just do a cost benefit analysis, like, it's sometimes the return on investment isn't there, whether you're talking about the years that you're going to have to pay back these loans, or whether you're talking about the years that you're spending going to class, either be learning something you learned in high school or learning something that's not going to be completely applicable. Like my daughter's about to go to college next year, and one of the things we're going to sit down and plan out this summer is, what is the business that she's going to be working on through those 4 years. Like, she loves graphic design and videography. So I said, you're going to start doing logos, websites, and materials for people, because that's what you enjoy doing. And over those 4 years, you're going to build up a clientele. And when you graduate, you'll either be able to expand that into a firm and hire people, continue to do it on your own to pay your bills while you do whatever else you want to do, or decide, hey, I'm going to treat this as an asset and pass my customers on to someone else, let them manage it while I still own it and make, some residual income from it. But either way, you will have built your own while experiencing college in a way that is enriching for you and your path, and not just to go there and get a piece of paper.
Love it. And, we think that every black child in America should know how to start their own business, right? Definitely. I love that you're imparting that wisdom, that knowledge base to your child as they, push forward for college. And, on that note, as we close out today, Craston, is there any piece of closing advice that you would like to, give our audience in regards to just the education of our babies, as you call them, right? So the education of our babies, what does the audience need to know about, whether the importance of it or just in general, what do they need to know about the education of our babies?
I think it goes back to a comment you made earlier about the larger American education system not built for us. You can't say it any more stronger. Like, it's the fact that it was illegal for us to read tells you what preceded our education system, and all the way up through, segregation, and even the desegregation efforts, which today we're just as segregated or more than we were 40, 50 years ago. So it's clear that the system was not built for us. That does not mean we can't gain some value from it. And like I said, most of our babies are in the traditional public school system. So we've got to engage it and fight for what we can. But at the same time, we have to think, what are we building that is for them? And even if, let's say you've got a child in high school and you feel like, okay, well, they're on. And again, that conversation with them shifts more towards college and what they're doing beyond that, or if they're going to college, and what else they're doing. But how then can you support another institution? Because, whether you went to B school, or whether you are a psychologist, or whether you are a truck driver, like, you've got something to contribute and teach to others. So there's some sort of educational institution in your community that you can plug into and share that knowledge and wisdom. Even if you are an IT person, you're going to help someone set up a network and a system where they can use Zoom to then allow some other brothers and sisters who have the information to impart, whatever that is. Find that within your community. So definitely start from questioning the system at large and some of that trust that we have. And I get it, as Black people, we trust pretty much most American systems to a fault. We see the gaps and we argue and fuss about it, but at the end of the day, we still give our allegiance to them. And so start to kind of question and break that down, and then see where your talents and gifts can fit into a Black-run institution for our children. And then just start to appreciate that, because I think we work so hard as Black people, whether we are trying to sustain our own families or trying to do something within our community, and we don't understand, we don't step back and celebrate Like, we don't step back and celebrate and say, I helped start this tutoring program at my church, or I was the one who connected with some other, the 100 Black men, and we mentored these children. Like, we've got to step back and celebrate those. We definitely have to, again, as Dr. Anderson says, we got to aggregate our resources better because our resources are too scattered. But we definitely have to celebrate what we do, and take the time to do that and show it to our children so that they know, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So, yeah.
Love it. Love it. That's I couldn't ask for a better closing answer to this interview. So how can people get in touch with you and know more about what you're doing?
You can definitely reach me through LinkedIn, Craston Artis. Just look up my profile. If you are not using LinkedIn, and I don't use much social media, to my wife's disappointment, you can reach out through email. That's perfectly fine. cmartis2, the number 2 at Gmail. I'd like to have a bit more presence as far as social media is concerned, so that'll be coming soon, particularly as I start to move more in this culturally relevant instruction space. But I'm always down for a good conversation about building, nation building, and would love to hear from whoever would like to reach out.
Love it. Love it. So everyone, please give a special thanks to Craston Artis for joining us today. If you like this video, please go ahead and press the thumbs up button. Also share this video with your friends and family, because there's nothing more important than educating our Black babies, our Black children, so that we can continue a strong legacy moving forward, and make sure that the Black community is one of the leaders in the world and succeeding on every level. Yep. In addition to that, please make sure you head over to theblackbusinessschool.com. That's theblackbusinessschool.com, where we just don't help you climb the corporate ladder, we help you build one as well. So we have classes on stock market investing, real estate investing, and also small business entrepreneurship. So basically anything that you want to learn about business, you can learn it over there, or if not yet, we will have a course in the future to help you learn the skills and the skills and I guess the education that you need to be successful in Black wealth creation, and also Black wealth preservation and protection as well. So on that note, on behalf of Craston Artis, I am Lawrence Watkins. I am the founder and CEO of Great Black Speakers, the President and Chief Operating Officer of the Black Business School, and you have listened to another episode of the Great Black Speakers podcast. You guys take care, be blessed, and have a great day. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care.